3 weeks later, he's completely back to normal. And then get this, Steve, that cycling event is an annual event in mid-ish April every year. That guy, Corey, goes back the following year and wins his age category for the race that he was in.
You
I
can't
say that to
write
say
up there.
that's what you call a complete recovery.
Join my free business community where you'll network, engage, and chat with business owners and entrepreneurs who are in the same boat as you. I also share my 40 years of business experience with you. Check for the link in the description.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am fired up for this show today because I'm sure it's happened to you out there in the audience. You meet somebody just a few months ago and you connect because the guy, Gary, let's give GST a shout out, connected us, but just having the same alignment in a lot of way we think. We're not exactly like, we don't live close, but there's just that alignment where you just know it's just a fun conversation. It's all about each other and all about busting GST's chops, which that's an inside joke, and we'll leave it at that. Before we bring our guest on, here's our gratitude for today. You're as unlimited as the endless universe. Yes, the universe or God, it's endless. Potential is endless. Just got to believe, live life with that servant's heart. So with that being said, let's bring our guest on. Mick, so excited to have you on today, brother.
Man, Steve, awesome to be here. Thank you a bunch, truly.
I got to ask you, when you look, when I first saw it, it's interesting. I know it's your podcast, and we'll get into that. Where'd that come about? What was the origin of it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Like you said, it is the podcast that I host, and the various iterations in the history of When You Look. Let's go back in the annals, Steve, of the version 1.0 that never went public, and that was a podcast that would launch in 2023. And we weren't quite sure what the name should be. And I say we because at the time, the plan was to co-host we'll call them testimony-based podcast with my sister. She was a radio host in the greater Baltimore area. And we thought, hey, we'll have a male-female perspective on things. We'll be able to co-host this. And we're having this conversation, Steve, very emphatically about the various stories that we were aware of, or better said, the various accounts that we were aware of like just wild, crazy things that some people would be like, man, that was totally a God thing, or that was totally a miracle. And then other people might say, wait a second, that's just total coincidence. So she and I are back and forth about this story and that story, and we frankly didn't know that many of them, which I think was part of the reason why we were so emphatic about it. Like, man, somebody's got to hear this. And she's like, somebody's got to hear this. And so I said to her, and I remember distinctly, I was standing in my kitchen, I got my ear pods in, you know what I mean? We're having a normal, phone call conversation. And I said, I'm like, sister, like, God's in all of these stories. And she goes, yeah, when you look. And I was like, that's it. That's the name of the podcast. And so as we began to flesh it out more, one of the things that really became clear, and this was mostly from conversations that my sister and I had, as well as kind of distilling a lot of what I felt like the Holy Spirit was revealing to me. And that was that the intention here was to glorify God to the fullest and farthest extent as the number one goal. But the number two was to move others towards Christ. And so When You Look created a degree of intrigue, because our thinking was that an atheist would not ever enjoy receiving something from a friend that was based on the URL of godstories.com. But if they got something from When You Look, they might be like, well, what is this? Hence, all of those pieces coming together, and that's where we sit today.
Yeah, I've never heard that story with your sister, so that's why I love doing a podcast. We talked for a couple hours, a couple meetings we've had. It's a great story. And what I like about When You Look, what you just said is, it doesn't have to be God. It's like when you look, that prospect shows up. When you look, your loved one shows up, or whatever that may be, right? God's the central part of this, but there's all these when you look all over the place, right?
Yeah, indeed. There's just lots of things that people, I think, consider to be coincidence. And yet, when you look, right, if you see him in the central sense, he's very much in control of pretty much everything. Now, I recognize, though, that not everybody believes that, you know? So in your audience, they may not see it that way. And that's one of the things that we hold space for on When You Look, because intellectually, I'm honest enough to say, Steve, you have your belief set. I have my belief set. We may not agree on every bit of those things. And I don't think it's right of me to say that, well, my belief set is right and yours
Yeah.
is wrong. So what we end up doing is, as guests share these incredible stories, we then ask them, was it coincidence or God? And we kind of set it up very binary. It's a lot of fun, you know, because most of the time we have an idea of how the guest is going to respond. But that's also the same question for the audience because they may see it differently. And there's space for that.
No, absolutely. And it's all perspective too. When you look, what you see, let's use God, it might be different than what I see. But what's the end result? God's the focal point, or that spouse is the focal point, or whatever, when you look. Especially nowadays, because what are we doing? Aren't we looking everywhere? Social media, TV, our computers, our phones, our tablets. So this kind of narrows your when you look down a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just giving everybody an opportunity, I think, to really consider God's degree of involvement in things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you've taught me a lot. I'm going to say this publicly on the show today, is that when we talked about it, I looked at it differently because we're human and we're going to forget to when you look. So I'm more conscious, intentional, and audience, whether it's God or universe or your family, when you're looking, be more intentional if you can. Things are going to come in the way, and you agree with that because we talked before the show. We're human. Things are going to
We
happen.
are. Yeah.
Tell us. I hate asking this question to podcast hosts because I get asked. It's hard because you got a lot of shows. Any favorite shows of people you've talked to?
Mm. You know, I'll highlight one. They're all, frankly, they're really, really quite cool across the board. I mean, we've had conversations with folks where they are literally warned in a dream for a friend. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Or people that have been given a name for their kid years before they're pregnant. I mean, it's just super, super wild stuff. But one of the ones that I think is particularly interesting, and it goes back to what we were talking about with this intellectual honesty and how people see things differently, being involved in the exact same experience, is episode 12. So episode 12 is this guy, Corey Eubanks. And Corey Eubanks is at this cycling event in Helen, Georgia. And he ends up having a heart attack during the ride. And guys are literally right around him because this is an event. This is not somebody riding by themselves. You know what I mean? And so people that were right behind him stop, and then other people that were a moment behind him come upon him, and they all begin to help. So other people then get a 911 call out, and eventually the paramedics show up. So this group of lay people, we'll call them, right? Like the typically uninitiated, paramedics are doing chest compressions on this guy, okay? And eventually the paramedics show up, and I happen to have been there, but that's not the reason why this is my favorite episode. But I can say for sure from my perspective that when they loaded this man, Corey, of course, at that time, I have no idea who he is, total, complete stranger. When they loaded him into the ambulance, I knew for sure he was dead. And basically, so did everybody else. Okay. And so, in this episode, this conversation, we explore it from all of the different perspectives from each of the people that were directly involved in it, including Steve, the paramedics. Okay. So, the two paramedics that were literally doing chest compressions, administering all of the meds to him, all of the, clear and the shock and all that kind of stuff in the ambulance. Those guys are on it, and all of the other people that are doing the actual chest compressions on him. And so there's basically 10 total guys on this episode and conversation. And Steve, when we get to the question of was it coincidence or God, it literally broke 50-50. Half of them are like, hey, right people, right place, right time. And the other half are like, there's too many things that came together in that sort of like right people, right place, right time type of approach for them to conclude it was anything other than God. So it's just super interesting because everybody's involved in the same exact thing themselves. Not secondhand. This is all firsthand experiences. So that one was particularly fun.
I love that. It's number 12 episode. It's When You Look podcast. He'll mention it here in a minute because I'm going to listen to that. Did you have all 10 on there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Wow, they all spoke.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
So audience, that's a cool podcast because now you get perspective. And we talked about earlier, I know we talked about before this show. It's funny. The 50, it's perspective. The people thought it was a coincidence. They could be right. Me and you believe the God thing, and we could be right. Doesn't matter. The end result, he's alive.
Exactly.
But you're looking back.
What's super crazy about that, just for those that really might be interested in a punchline here. So not only is the guy alive, so I didn't actually communicate that clearly. So thank you for reading between the lines. So this guy Corey is without a pulse, according to the paramedics, for 38 minutes.
What?
And 6 days. Yes, I'm not making that up. And that's why I'm saying according to the paramedics, and they're the ones that communicate that timeline.
Yep.
And you can actually see that they are looking at their screens, their system, their documentation, showing this is when we arrived, this is when we got the call, X number of minutes prior to that, this is what we were administering, this is when we get a pulse back. So it's 38 minutes without a pulse. They talk about how they think, man, we got a pulse back, but we don't even know if this guy is going to survive when we get him to the cath lab. And if he does, what type of quality of life is he going to have? 6 days later, Corey Eubanks walks out of the hospital under his own volition. 3 weeks later, he's completely back to normal. And then get this, Steve, that cycling event is an annual event in mid-ish April every year. That guy Corey goes back the following year and wins his age category for the race that he was in.
You
I
can't
say that to say
that's
that's what you call a complete recovery.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the time? Did they talk about time frame that where your heart stops, that you won't, what's the word I want to use, won't recover from that? I mean, it's 38 minutes, way beyond that, right?
Oh, it's got to be way beyond that. Yeah, I mean, I remember, from earlier in life when you're learning about those things, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 6 minutes, something along those lines. It's got to be single digits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
38 minutes seems like that's an eternity.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an entire television episode.
Is crazy. Out in 6 days, and then almost a year later, he's winning a race. He's just not, and if he just took the race, if he just stood on the sidelines, that's good. But he actually participated and won. Yeah, okay. I know what side I'm on, but we'll leave it at that. God, it's just, the audience got to listen to this podcast When You Look. Just do it. And audience, I'm going to do this for you. If you go listen to his podcast and you mention it to me, reach out to me. If you don't have my contact, reach out. I will send you a free book. First 5 people, you listen to his podcast and tell him the guest name. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. I'm not going to put AI on you and go, what? But you do. I'm going to send you a book because you know what? He just changed my life right now. Just get, Mick, you just made a difference. And I want to do that for you. But let's keep moving on because When You Look struck with me, because this is Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. We are brother podcast because you have to look before you serve. Correct? Yep. Am I on point here? So when you're looking, Steve, that's when you can tell the baby you look cute, or give $5 to the guy that needs it, or open the door for. Talk about that, the curtain between service and When You Look.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, let's look at a limited view of looking, okay? Because you really kind of brought up a great example of that you have to look prior to
Mhm.
serving. And what I mean by that limited view is if we can't see beyond the edge of our nose, right? Meaning if we're really just focused on ourselves, self-focused, then we're never going to see the opportunities to which we could serve someone else. It's really that simple. But then there becomes what I think to be a good skill in it. And there's lots of different personality profiles and assessments and other types of behavioral styles that indicate that certain people are connectors of others. But I really think that that's a learned skill. And the more you practice virtually any skill, whether it's the guitar or kicking a soccer ball with your non-dominant foot or something, you know what I mean? Like, how do we get better at doing the things that we want to get better at? Practice, right? And so, in this same way, the more we are looking, the more we can serve. And then we've got to then make the decision, okay, now I'm going to actually go and do that, right? Meaning now I'm
Wow.
actually going to serve. I saw an opportunity, now I'm going to go do it. And I think that that also, at least from my experience, tends to beget more of the same thing.
Not that this happens all the time, but Corey's story is a perfect example. When they looked, those people on the sidelines, and started doing CPR, and I don't know if the paramedics or doctors could tell us that, but it helped survive them, help them so they
Oh,
survived.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
it's
they
funny. The
looked
paramedics
and they survived.
absolutely talk
They
about
agreed.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they did. Because again, there's your when you look, they looked, Corey's down, they served. They jumped on, did
Yep.
CPR, and did, all those people did what they did. Oh, what a fabulous, oh my God, you get me excited.
There's just so much encouragement that comes from it. And that's what I
Yeah.
would, suggest to anybody that, we are those of us that are in business or you're doing business in a nonprofit, perhaps like it's business, the dollars and cents may need to look a little bit different on the statements, but look, this is business, right? Meaning we have to produce value. Okay. Like that's what business is about. Okay. So, it's not all about dollars and cents when I say business. It's about creating value, delivering value, and that's tough, right? There's lots of times when it's going really well and lots of times when it's super hard. And so one of the things that people have shared with me, whether it's guests or folks that have listened to the show, meaning when you look, they literally talk about how encouraging it is to them because there's just crazy wild stories from regular folks like you and me and like the regular folks in your audience. And it's a lot of fun, lots of encouragement.
So your background's corporate to podcast. Interesting pivot. And we won't get too deep into it, but you're so passionate about your podcast, and that's kind of what you do full time. Why are you?
Yeah, man, I gotta be straightforward about it. God directed me to do it. So, like you said, I was multiple decades in the corporate space, in particular in the sales space. I was an SVP of sales prior to a transition from company A to company B entirely imploding. And it was just really clear to my wife and I at that point that the only way this kind of thing blows up, because at that level, Steve, we both know, right? Legal groups, attorneys, they've vetted all this. Everything's been negotiated. You're doing the fine print over the weekend. Why? Because company B wants me to start on Monday because they want me to resign on Monday. And this guy's going, "Yep, absolutely. I'm all in." You know what I mean? So like, let's get
Yeah.
this done Sunday night so I can resign and start with you the next day. So when that type of thing just completely implodes, it was crystal to us that God was involved in it. And through prayer, through fasting, after that, he literally told me, he's like, stop looking for work and focus on when you look. And that's what I've been doing for well over a year.
What a way to look. I mean, and people listening, I know I'll just use 8 to 10. I could be wrong, audience. People would stay. It's a well-paying job. It's you have abundance, but you walked away. Powerful.
Yeah, it just was very clear that that was the right thing to do. And by the right thing to do, what I mean by that, just so that everybody is clear here, is that I'm not making a judgment call one way or another, which is why I want to clarify this. What I mean by the right thing to do was I felt like that the God of the universe, the God that I believe is the creator of all things, was communicating to me that I was supposed to go host this podcast. And therefore, when I say the right thing to do, I don't mean that as a projection upon anyone else or even upon myself. I'm really meaning to say I felt as if my requirement was to be obedient to that direction.
I love it. This is much better. I knew it'd be good, but you just blow me out of the water. And I've done a lot of these. This is one of my best because it's just so natural for everybody if they follow that, if they look. When you look, just look. So, final question. What's a piece of advice? I know people listening, I know I'm going to get emails. How do I start when you look? I love this. I want to look more. What's that first step?
Man, what is the first step to looking more? Well, I would start with perhaps examining who has actually created you. And the reason why I say that is I'm not going to wax philosophical here, Steve, but give me just a brief moment to try and make this make sense, okay? I think that we're sentient upon birth, okay? But our earliest memories for any of us as an adult are somewhere around age 4 or age 5, okay? And it is my opinion, there's no neuroscience here, okay? So everybody, this is totally caveated with this is Mick's opinion. But my opinion is that as a 2-year-old, we're not the same processing power as we are as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And while we are sentient at, say, 2, I think when we finally get to, and whenever this period is, okay, when we finally get to that moment that we can kind of like understand that we're alive, and maybe that is prior to us having any memory, okay? So maybe that is 2. Again, I don't know, but track with me on this for one more moment. At that point, I think we only can understand ourselves to have been alive. What do I mean by that? I think we end up living our entire lives thinking we've been alive, not understanding or considering that at one point we weren't, because our actual lived experience has been one only that we can remember, okay, of being alive. I don't think any of us have any way to recollect being, a single cell that is now, dividing and multiplying. And so for that reason, I really encourage everybody to consider who created me or what created me, or even before that, was I created? And I think if you determine that you were created, then for me, it has been one where my life then was given to me. It's therefore not my own. So at that point, I personally need to have God's grace and mercy flow to me and through me. And one of the ways I can do that is by being generous to others, right? And by generous, Steve and I were talking about this before we hit record. We're not talking necessarily or exclusively about dollars and cents, but looking, right? Serving others, right? Leading with a servant's heart, taking care of others. It's not ultimately about us.
Amen. All right, that's a great way to end the show. Let's do one quick question and get to know you so the audience knows who really is Mick. So I'm coming out to your hometown. You're going to pick your favorite restaurant. I'm going to reserve a table. I want you to invite 3 people that are alive who've been influential, made a difference in your life. For me, I want you to order the food. So what food would you be ordering for the table?
Oh man, I'm grateful that I get to order the food, because I'm such a humongous fan of steak. We would be eating the best possible that we could, for sure.
Tomahawk for sure. We get some tomahawks and we're going to go crazy. Oh, we'll bring GST with us. GST, there's your invite if you're listening to this. Who would you invite besides GST and me and you?
Yeah, you know what? So my firstborn son, Steve, I'm gonna really take some liberties here. My firstborn son was a full-term stillbirth. So
Oh,
I would actually invite my firstborn son. If we could bring him to life, it would be super neat to sit down, cut up some steak together, and enjoy life in that conversation with you guys along with him.
and two others?
I, my wife is beautiful. I
Oh
absolutely
no,
love her.
wife comes. All our
Wife
wives will
comes.
be
Oh,
there. So we're gonna
all
get
the wife comes. Okay.
yeah. Forgot to mention
Yeah.
that.
I honestly I don't have a great response for who some of the others would be,
Okay.
because there's just so many wonderful people. I'd have to give some real thought to who would make those last two spots.
We'll just get their headshots. We'll put them in the middle of the table, and we'll thank all of them having your stillborn away. I've done that question 800 times, and that's the first, and it's a beautiful, beautiful message. And I'm not surprised coming from a guy like you. And Mick, thanks for taking the time. I look forward to listening to this podcast. Audience, again, you reach out to me and you listen to the podcast when you look, not this one. Okay, if you listen to this one too, I'll give you a bonus. Won't tell you what that is, but if you mention this podcast as well and subscribe to YouTube channels, to podcasts like mine or Mick's or whoever. And if you're listening to Corey's story, which I'm going to go listen to, I've got a couple of people I'm going to share it with because me and Mick believe in giving these gifts. We talked about before the show. That's what podcasts are. Yeah, you're going to learn, you're going to know and inspired, but nobody talks about the gifts that these really are. So subscribe to your channels you like and your podcasts you like and start giving gifts out till Christmas. And you got a whole bunch of gifts to give in Christmas. So with that being said, me and Mick want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.